This is one of the largest mobile crushers in the world. It's a hungry rock monster known as the Krupp, and we're gonna show you everything you need to know about it. Nestled in the strawberry-covered hills of Aromas, California, Graniterock operates one of the finest mining operations I've ever visited, the A.R. Wilson Quarry. This place has it all. It looks fantastic, features monster mining machines, and has one of the most unique crushers in the world. But before we touch on the specifics, it's worth diving into the history. In 1899, Arthur R. Wilson and investors bought the operation and incorporated it as the Graniterock Company in 1900. During the Great Depression, the company spun off its construction business as what's today known as granite construction. But as the war escalated in the 40s, a huge material boom happened. The Bay Area exploded, and the A.R. Wilson Quarry was there to serve. You know the stories of companies like Apple, HP, and Google starting in Silicon Valley garages? Their foundation likely came out of this hole. In the 1980s, the quarry continued to modernize, which is when the monstrous Krupp, made in Germany, entered the chat. Nowadays, the quarry produces millions of tons of granite materials annually, shipping much of it to the Bay Area by rail. It's also worth noting that this was the first major quarry I visited back in 2018. With the background sorted, let's start today's video at the quarry's stripping operations. This is the next part of the pit. It's all covered in this overburden. They got to get rid of it somehow. So they run these 4 627K scrapers. The unique thing about this operation is the scrapers, they're push-pull, they're loading over there, but they're unloading right here, which is what they call the scraper barn. So these scrapers are pulling in there over a set of grizzlies. They just sit there, they open the apron, they use the ejector to push that material out. It drops beneath to a conveyor out to a placement area where they're filling in with that earth. After the scrapers dump into the barn, the material heads over a mile via the conveyor belt to a placement area. At the end sits a unique machine nicknamed Big Bill. I promise we're gonna get back to see the Krupp eating its dinner, but first we wanted to show you the other end of the scraper operation. So we've stripped the dirt from up top of the quarry there. The scrapers have brought it over to that barn. They've dumped it through those grizzlies onto the conveyor. And 15 minutes later, that dirt goes all the way across this conveyor to this thing right here. And that is Big Bill. Big Bill is another piece of German engineering here at the A.R. Wilson Quarry. And Big Bill spreads the material along this hillside. All of the dirt Big Bill is upon, that solar field's upon, that we're standing on right now, is dirt that's been brought out of the A.R. Wilson Quarry, stripped to make way for that rock beneath. Now that we've seen how they remove the overburden, let's check out the final products of the operation. We're gonna see the Krupp. We're gonna go back there, I promise. But we wanted to show you before we did the end of the line. This is the secondary plant. The Krupp reduces that rock going into it to a 10-inch minus, so it's 10 inches or less. It goes by conveyor belt to here, which then feeds into other crushers. Those crushers crush that rock further. These screens screen that rock into different products, and then it's all piled up according to size. This right here is more coarse rock. This is for gabion type material for flood control, for erosion, so on and so forth. But they produce all kinds of materials from sand to base rock to riprap. All of it is made here.
How are you doing? Good, how are you? Pretty good. Yep, this is the tower, man. This is where all the magic happens, right here.
This is the magic, huh?
Yes. So we control the like the WRP, that plant up there, up in the mountain. This is the WRP plant, the thickener tank, and this is the whole secondary plant here that we're running.
Okay.
The dry side and the wet side. There are two sides on this plant. And then we run load out from here on this screens here, which is all this area over here. We fill the bins up with these 2 rinse lines.
Yeah.
And like right now, we're loading the rail cars. You guys can see the rail cars.
So you're loading those rail cars right now?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. Where is that on here?
Yeah, so we're filling up these bins right now
and then
for the quarter 10.
And then the rail cars go underneath the bin?
They open this rail gate in the middle, these 2 bins. And then you can see it goes into that belt and into the rail cars.
I see.
Yeah.
Is that automatic, or do you have to fill each one?
Once it reaches a certain level here in the middle of these 2 bins, he gets a buzzer over there and he can push a button and then he gets the material.
Wow.
But he's got to be moving the rail cars over there.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, we got an operator over there.
The operator.
Rail cars
I see.
with the engine.
Meet the Krupp. This is a 750-ton mobile crusher capable of chewing through 3,000 tons of granite per hour. They run this about 10 to 12 hours every single day, and they start it up in the afternoon. We're here early afternoon right now, and in just about an hour they're gonna fire it up. They run it right now about 5 days a week and vary the schedule based on demand for aggregate in the area. Now, Graniterock, they've been mining here for a very long time. As we discussed in the intro to this video, they used to have a stationary crusher, which is what most quarries have. So most quarries, they build a crusher in one area, and then they use trucks to haul material from the pit, from the face to that crusher. They dump it in the crusher, and then it goes into the plant. But what Graniterock discovered was that if they got one of these monsters, they could move the crusher to the face, reducing the number of trucks and making the operation more efficient. And that's exactly what they do here. They transitioned this operation to this more mobile format in the late 80s, and this machine has been here since, chewing through, at this point, tens of millions of tons of granite, providing all of Northern California a lot of rock, a lot of solid foundations. Interestingly, this hole that we're standing in right now wasn't nearly this deep, so this has moved deeper and deeper and deeper. The last time it moved was actually a pretty big deal. The first time I saw it was way up there. Now we're down in the hole at the bottom, and they actually had to bring in Mammoet to put the crusher on these mobile platforms to move it a further distance down to this new elevation. Finally, it's time to see the Krupp eat her dinner. We've got these 2 992s loading. We'll get to that in a moment, but let's go up top there and see the command center. Here's the Krupp crusher control panel. There's a nice sway to this area here as the crusher is running, which we didn't see before. I have no idea what any of this really is, but what I do know is that we're feeding about 2,100 tons per hour. We can go up till 3,000, but they like to keep it a little backed off there to make sure everything runs as it should. And how do you drive it? You use this little box right here. How does it eat? Well, we've got the feed down there. 2 992s can toss material over both sides simultaneously. And then we have this giant conveyor made of these huge steel pieces to form the conveyor that moves at a very slow rate, ferrying that material from the feed up to the top of the crusher. As it dumps over the edge here, there's grizzly bars positioned right beneath that edge. The fines drop through those grizzlies and dump onto the conveyor below. They don't need to go through the crusher. It's inefficient for all of the material to go through the crusher. They just want the bigger rocks. So then those bigger rocks hit the grizzlies, bounce off into the mouth of the crusher where they become small rocks. This is the business end, so to speak, of the Krupp, the actual cone crusher. It's an enormous cone. You can probably see it much better from a drone perspective. How a cone crusher works is pretty straightforward. You've got the outer piece and then you've got an inner piece. The inner piece is sitting in the middle, wiggling around. And as it wiggles, the rock gets caught in between the piece that's not moving and the wiggly piece, which then crushes it down, and the crushed rock falls out the bottom onto a conveyor belt and then heads out of the pit. So all this is a giant piece of steel wiggling about inside of another giant piece of steel, and all of that is what crushes the rocks. That right there, it looks a lot like a hammer because it is a hammer. It's a hydraulic hammer mounted to a stationary excavator essentially. And what that's for is if big rocks get up in there and jam in that cone, they can use that hammer, poke at those rocks, break it up, and clear that jam very, very quickly. That's all she wrote here at the A.R. Wilson Quarry. Thank you to Graniterock for having us out. I love this company. I love this quarry. It's always a blast to visit. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. We'll see you next time. Stay dirty.